R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take out TCB. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, Little Richie. Sock it to me, sock it to me. Ooh, hey, little bit, Little Richie. Just a little bit. I'll get tired.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Respect, another Sunday night. Hope you all had a great week, and you're all ready for tonight's discussion. This is a big and important discussion. There's been a lot of stuff going on recently that we've all seen in the news, we've all seen on Telegram, we've all seen everywhere. I've seen it in our chat, I've seen it in our comments. And it's not a good position for anybody to have to be in. You've all, I'm sure, watched and seen this going on, where you've got anti-Semitic protests. You know how I feel about the word anti-Semitic, but anti-Semitic protests, anti-Jewish protests. You have more than that. You have anti-Christian protests that happened last week at a nice prayer meeting when Antifa showed up and started harassing people. They even crowded in a mother with her baby in her arms. People just acting like animals, all out of just self-indulgence and religious intolerance. And then you had the protests on campus with Muslim protesters or just Palestinian supporters. People are under attack all over the world. Not a healthy situation to be in. It's not a tolerant situation to be in. And this isn't where we want to be going in to the Great Awakening. It's not what it's supposed to be about. We're all supposed to be there helping each other, tolerating each other, being friends with each other, and helping to make sure that we have the best situation that we possibly can. So I want to welcome our panel tonight. We've got Patriot Underground, we've got Truth Stream, Joe and Scott, and we have Louis Herms of Screw Big Gov. Before we get into any kind of discussion, because it's very important, I want to wish Patriot Underground and Louis Herms very, very happy birthdays, even though they're in different decades. Very happy, healthy birthdays, many, many more to come.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that also. When's your birthday?
Not until the end of July.
Not yours, Mark. I'm talking about Patriot Underground.
Mine was yesterday.
It's all about Mark, isn't it? It's just all about Mark. Great. Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
mine was yesterday, May 31st. Yeah, turned 46. It's hard to believe, but
Oh, you're a child.
You
I
are
know.
just a youngster.
I knew Mark was going to make some kind of comment. Baby, I am. He calls me kiddo, so that's all right.
Oh, okay. Wait. I'm turning 60 tomorrow, and he calls me kiddo.
Wow.
I know.
So
right?
how old are you, Mark?
The end of July, I will be 71.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm an old fart.
I get a
So-
17 there.
Well,
Oh.
Louis, I gotta say, happy birthday, Dad.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
And,
absolutely. I
the
got
first
you
time
guys
on
together.
with on Respect, so it's kind of cool, and to meet Louis obviously for the first time, and of course I'm here with my buddies Joe and Scott, so it should be a fun chat.
It'll be fun. I have no idea why you put me on a show called Respect.
The Rodney Dangerfield of the truth industry.
Right.
because I have nothing but the greatest respect for you.
Oh, thank
So-
you. I'll
Good
send
answer.
the money right over.
Wait, let me wipe that off my shoes before we get
Yes,
started.
exactly.
So we have seen a lot of really bad stuff going on globally, but a lot over the past few months in this country. And we, as I said in the open, this Great Awakening, this war that we've been fighting is supposed to be a war to unite humanity, not to divide humanity. And we had a discussion a few weeks ago how religion has been the great divide throughout history, organized religion.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's get started talking about what's been going on and how it looks to you guys where we're headed. So, Patriot, let's start with you, the kid in the group.
Well, I think that a lot of what we're seeing right now, I've always characterized the Great Awakening as really the antidote to so much of what we're seeing right now. So much of the division, we all know that it's a divide and conquer paradigm. We were all born into it. And we as the awakened understand that obviously far better than the normies, the people out there. A lot of them are just operatives. A lot of them are useful idiots in the video clips that you just showed. But it's really a sign of mass ignorance. And I think what breeds ignorance is this constant, I think at a subconscious level, people know that the world is broken. They don't really know exactly how and why it's broken. They know that they've been lied to about everything. I mean, that's the one thing that we have in common with basically everybody that hates us is that we all agree that we're being lied to. But the division comes from that, that hidden hand manipulation of the cabal constantly pitting one group against another and blaming the Jews for the plight of the Christians and the Muslims. And, it's just round and round and round it goes. It's a circle of ignorance, but it's all rooted in this idea that we've had the truth withheld from us our entire lives. And because of that, because it's been done so successfully, it's very easy to manipulate that those natural emotions that go along with that. Every group has been marginalized in certain ways, has been victimized in certain ways, and that's what the enemy does. Is they pit one group against another, and they use the media and they use all of the disinformation, the fake history, the entire worldview, I would say, of the masses out there is completely skewed because people don't know where we came from. We don't know our real history. We don't know who our universal enemy is. And so for us as the awakened, that's really our role, is to break that down. But I think that the truth that we're starting to see become more and more evident. I mean, this is an ongoing exposure operation, as we know. And the more that gets revealed, I think the closer we get to having sort of the antidote to all of that hatred, all of that division, because once people recognize universally that we have a common enemy, sure, we have our disagreements. I don't think that we're ever going to all see things the same way. I don't believe that that's the way the creator wanted it to be necessarily. We're supposed to have different perspectives on things. We're supposed to have different ideas about the world. But once there is this mass awakening, once the Great Awakening really happens, people are going to recognize that they've been victimized, not just by not by the group that they think is victimizing them. Like if you're the Muslims and you think it's the Christians, or if you are the Jews, or whoever the group is, people are going to say, well, wait a second, we may have our differences here with those people, but they've been exacerbated, they've been weaponized by that hidden hand enemy. And I think that, to me, that's really kind of the way I see it from a broad spectrum perspective. And I'll leave it at that. As you folks know, I could go on and on, but I want to make sure I get a chance here. I see we're already like 11 minutes into the show, and sometimes I lose track of how long I've been talking.
That's
Okay,
a brevity
Smiley.
record, I think.
Okay, Smiley, let's go to you, Lewis.
So I concur. I guess I don't really need to say any more. You nailed it. Absolutely. The reality is the construct we have to understand is absolutely intentional. The divide is intentional. It's black and white. It's always black and white. They always show two sides. It's Democrat, Republican. And I was just writing something literally right before I came on air that the division in the Democrat Republican Party, the left versus right, the red versus blue, conservative versus liberal, is intentional, and there is much more that those parties agree upon than they disagree upon, because we all have certain value sets that we would agree upon. I don't think we want children to be raped daily or sold or their organs harvested. There's many, and ultimately, whether stolen elections have so-called the illusion has helped one side the reality is, I think people probably don't want stolen elections. They would rather have free and fair elections. So if we can have an honest, integrity-based conversation with people, I believe we can have a commingling of ideas and come up to a result just like our founding fathers did. That would be exceptional for everybody. The challenge that we have is people don't know that they're being puppeteered by parasites. And that's the challenge. It is constant puppeteering by parasites. The only thing they really need to control us is to keep us sick and keep us divided. That's it. If they can do that, and they do a phenomenal job at that. And the reality is most truths fall somewhere in the middle. I have the unique distinction, I guess a badge of honor, of being called an anti-Semite and a Jew lover within an hour of each other. Right? Because I explore the truth, right? And found out, maybe the truth is actually somewhere in the middle, but the division is what works for the controllers. So I'll defer to Scott and what's that other guy? That artist, Joe. That's right. I'll
Mr.
defer to,
Redface?
yeah, exactly. You guys are you are preparing for your lobster commercial, right? Is that next?
Come on, it's less red now. But no, we just got back from Costa Rica, and I got to tell you, the contrast was palpable.
In your face before and after, or something else?
No, the people. We got into LAX, and it was like there was the fluoride stare, and everybody was scrolling their phones, and everyone was disconnected. And
Interesting.
we were in Costa Rica, and there was kind of none of that, and the conversations were not superficial. And I was kind of surprised. We were in sort of a hippy dippy kind of community, but everybody was really pretty awake.
The people were amazing.
Pro-Trump, and they knew what was going on, and it was amazing. But to come back, it was really, everyone seemed a lot less healthy, a lot more obese, and you just sort of see the plan at work. This country was targeted, but with the conflict, right now with Zelensky and Putin, I find it funny that Trump is aghast with surprise at what's happening. Like, oh my, Putin's lost his mind. It really speaks to how scripted things are, and Trump had re-truthed a couple of really stunning comments about. I don't know if you guys saw that
About Biden.
Part of that was being a clone, and what was it, robotics, and all sorts of different things about how the election was stolen
Executed
and
in 2020.
Executed in 2020.
it's a hell of a
Yeah,
thing
like,
for a sitting president to retweet that. That's an endorsement. That was kind of refreshing. I like that.
Well, we need something that's really going to jar something loose.
Oh, something jarred loose for sure. I think people are in the midst of a hell of a week. I can't imagine what it must feel like for the TDS folks out there.
Well, it reminds me of the scene from The Joker that this town needs an enema. And I think Trump just delivered that.
For sure. Well, and it's a continual thing. Like we always say, it started out as a red pill, but now it's a suppository, and it's about the size of a football.
Or a blimp.
If you're just now catching on, God help you. Like what a ride. But
No, it's been really, really crazy out there, and you're being bombarded in so many different directions. But it just seems that the more directions things go in, the more people are getting divided. I think you've got patriots getting fed up. You've got the normies who, you've got the never Trumpers in there, and then you've got the others. But it lends to them succeeding in keeping us divided. And because we've created a society in which nobody wants to be responsible for anything, they always have to have somebody to blame. This is what's going on. And the easiest targets have always been religion. And like I've said numerous times over the past bunch of weeks, it's like sports. No offense, Patriot. Boston's not as good as New York, and they're going after you that way. And it's the same thing with religion. The Jews did this, the Christians and the Muslims have been fighting since 700 AD, and all these stupid things that in reality, the priests, the rabbis, and the imams have been preaching to their congregations to really create and codify those divides. And we as the people have to start being smart enough to walk away from that and say, no, we're not going to get dragged into this anymore. But a lot of people have that so ingrained in their being from years and years, from family teaching, because they went to church or synagogue or, wherever they were taught their religion, and everything gets passed on from generation to generation and just gets worse. And nobody seems to want to take the step forward. And it's a matter of, you can't expect the Christians to take care of the Jews or the Jews to take care of the Muslims. Each group has to step up and realize what they've been doing. With the whole phrase of saving Israel for last. If the Jews don't realize by now, with the alleged anti-Semitism and everything else, where it's going to go, and then that comes through, it's going to get hard. But they've got to start policing their own and be responsible for their own. Same with the Christians, same with the Muslims. Muslims have a really bad rap, especially since the 80s with plane hijackings and the 9/11 and everything else. Everything was blamed on the Muslims. But all of this crap has got to stop. So where do we go? Red men?
Well, I think Lewis made a really good point, talking about how all they really need to do is keep us sick and divided. I would probably add to that also poor, to keep us inside of that fiat debt prison, like we talk about so often. But, there are a lot of different aspects to this conversation, but we've all been indoctrinated into a world that's very tribal. And by the way, this is nothing new. As you guys know, this goes back centuries. It's always been their primary means of control. Is if you're the elite, how do you keep yourself hidden? Well, if you have all the power, all the influence, all the money, and you can pit one group against another and constantly have them fighting with one another while masquerading as the savior, which is something they always do, you're going to keep that perpetual cycle of division going. You're always going to have and by the way, I think that in a lot of ways, and this is not to disparage anybody who is a person of faith, because I myself am a person of faith, but organized religion is, in my opinion, one of the earliest forms of mind control. This idea of I'm right and you're wrong. Like there's only one way to get to God. There's only one way to do things right, and we have to. And from that, of course, sprung all of these different historically, all these different wars. That have been in so many ways rooted in that idea that's being manipulated between the two different groups. But once that's what the Great Awakening is all about, is identifying the puppeteers, like Lewis called them. That's the antidote, as far as I'm concerned, because as long as the masses are not aware that they're being manipulated, then this is just going to continue on in a perpetual cycle. But I don't believe that that's the case. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of what we're seeing, it's like they say that it's always darkest before the dawn, and I'm anticipating, I think, Mark, you're of the same opinion, and probably I would imagine everyone on this panel, that sooner or later, this whole exposure operation, Q operation, which, by the way, that's no small thing that Trump posted yesterday. The sitting president of the United States retruthed that the previous president was executed in 2020. And that it's been a clone, or even if you don't want to go down that road of clones, you could just say an actor. This is all prima facie to the people who are awakened, but this has been amplified all over the mainstream media. And of course, they're doing what they typically do, saying, oh, Trump is spreading this insane conspiracy theory. All a white hat tactic, in my view, to proliferate this idea as predictive programming, because eventually people are going to realize that this is in fact the truth. But one of the things I also have to say that, and I posted about this on X today, is if you really read between the lines there, he wasn't just simply telling us that Biden was executed and that he was replaced, he was really legitimizing the entire Q operation, right?
Yeah.
Because if Biden was executed, it obviously begs the question, who executed him? Who could possibly do such a thing?
Mhm.
Who could possibly do such a thing and keep it secret? And then by extension, if he was replaced by a clone or an actor, as we know he was, who was behind that?
Who's running the show?
Right? And there are really only a couple of possible answers to those questions. So to me, that was absolutely massive. And I think we've been talking. I know Mark, when I've been on with you, and I think Joe and Scott, we've had similar conversations. But speculating now for years, are the White Hats going to actually disclose that there has been an ongoing military operation? And I think that Trump actually did that yesterday. If you have eyes to see, he basically told you that we've been living in a psyop, that we've been living watching this, this scripted movie, whatever you want to call it. So that was no small thing. But again, going back to the main topic here, as soon as this is fully exposed, and I don't really think that we're far off. I'm not going to sit here and speculate about dates and timelines, but it seems to me like we're getting very, very close. If Trump is posting these things, and by the way, he had also just previously, a couple of days before, posted that meme, nothing can stop what's coming. He's on a mission from God. Nothing can stop what's coming. And Pepe the Frog was in the background. My good friend, Spiritual Street Fighter, I use her art for a lot of my thumbnails on my show. She's been retruthed by Trump almost 40 times.
Wow.
And her memes are overtly Q. All right. And these are just two examples. So, I mean, that if you want to look at that as a barometer of how close we're getting, and then to post this today, I mean, to me, this was absolutely massive. And what does it all mean? Well, how does it tie into the topic at hand? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Once this is a thread that once it gets pulled is going to expose everything. And of
Ben,
course,
was that her art where Trump had the Q on the collar?
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought so.
yeah,
Well,
she's amazing. She really is brilliant.
I'll go one up from that. Based on one of her posts that he retruth was the genesis for my Remember Your Oath program.
Oh, really?
Because she actually put a picture, I believe it was Trump, and one of her first ones, Trump and Melania together, and it said, "Remember your oath." And in shadowed out on the side, it was a very large Q on there. And that was one of the first ones. So he did this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the genesis, because that was the trigger for me to start working to putting together things for the sheriffs and so on and so forth about remember how important your oath is, your true oath,
Yeah.
not the fake oath. So it is fascinating the way this message is being delivered methodically and so on and so forth. My biggest challenge from the beginning, though, is the misinterpretation of a lot of things. And where I thought a lot of it had to do with people getting clicks and so on and so forth. So I use my favorite example is Trust the Plan. Well, Trust the Plan, I believe, was in the drops 42 times. But I think Trust the Plan has always been about engaging we the people to get to work also. And if you really study the drops, if you really care, and it's not about the narrative, it's not about sitting on your couch and wearing your Pepe mask and eating popcorn. If you really, really care about we the people, you would know that 157 times the drop included the people.
Yeah.
Because the people are the real plan. And when even some of my really good friends say it's all a movie, they're in 100% in control. I liken it to, I believe they're in control of a chessboard and they're doing a phenomenal job. But the reason why they need we the people to get engaged is because there's so many things in your communities in regard to transgender dancing hour in your schools and certain books in your library, and human and child trafficking is rampant, and CPS is stealing kids wholesale and putting them into literally fight clubs that, I'm involved in some of these things and working on some cases with some people. So the plan is always included we the people. It always has. In fact, if we dive into just what Trump has been communicating lately, he's the one from the White House that posted about how important a well-organized militia was. I didn't do that. President Trump did that. President Trump, I believe, actually put this on X, and I believe Truth, about how important it was to remember 250 years ago the revolution. And if I remember correctly, January 20th, 2017, in front of a military contingent, he said, we gave it back to who? The people. So he gave us the ball, and I believe, honestly, we dropped it, but now it seems like we're starting to pick it up, because I am finding a lot more people active within their communities to take their communities back, which is the micro that fixes the macro.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I'll comment on that when it gets back to me, but Joe and Scott got it.
Well, I'm just wondering, it would appear we have a new greatest ally in the Middle East, and it's not Israel. And now it would appear the Jews are building concentration camps, of all things, which who would have ever predicted that happening? I mean, wow. So, talk about a movie.
Can I ask you a quick question before you continue? Is
Please.
it the Jews building concentration camps, or is it the fake Jews that control the government of Israel that are building concentration camps?
100%. I mean, yeah, I thought that would go without saying, but it's important to make that distinction. You're right.
Very important, because that's something I presented a billion times, and people have to get that through their heads.
Oh, yeah.
You can't be going out and blaming a group of people when it's the government that's in control. And that goes with the United States of America as well.
There are a lot of Israelis risking their lives to report, the cloud of death that's happening around them. I mean, that's no small sacrifice. The people are not behind what the government is doing. And this bad behavior it's a government behaving this way. Very unpopular government. I don't know how Netanyahu has managed to evade jail for as long as he given how unpopular he is among.
Because is it really Netanyahu?
Exactly. Then we're back to, of course, you're watching a movie.
Well, that's why this Trump tweet or retruth is so important, because it really sets the precedent for so many of the other people or masks or clones or whatever it is that we're watching. It's huge. It's like, it feels like sometimes like there's nothing going on, kind of, and then there's this banger that's like that. And I just want to let the audience know, to be with you guys, like, you are the most respect to me personally. I couldn't think of a better show of four guys, including Scott. Sometimes I like to. Well, I was going to say.
What the hell does that mean?
No, there's three of you, but Scott is right next to you. No, that are so willing to dig and look at things from so many perspectives, and be open-minded, and do it without ego, and be there for your audience. And I just want to say, Ricardo Bossi gave Patriot Underground just an absolutely beautiful compliment a couple weeks ago, that he really, when he does his personal shows and just really digs, that he's so on about things. And to hear that from Bossi, and to know what Lewis has put on the line, and what Mark's doing, and what Scott and I have, what I've learned from Scott and our audience, it's such an absolute honor to be here, because you guys are the most relatable people in this movement. I just want to acknowledge that. It's an absolute honor to be here with you guys tonight.
I concur.
Likewise. Thank you.
Screw you.
Even Mark, really.
Even Mark, he's all right.
Wait, let me see if I get my head bigger in the screen here.
This dog may be that. Well, are you going to come over here?
Yeah, there's a 250-pound mastiff harassing Joe to his right.
He's right here.
250 pounds?
Yes. Yeah, he's the size of a lion.
Yeah,
Mine is 165 right here, and I thought that was huge. Holy moly!
Oh yeah, he's literally the size of a lion. If he doesn't want to do what I tell him to do, he just gives me that look, and there's nothing I can do about it. But yeah,
We
He's a
lost
good
ours
dog.
a couple of months ago, and she was 2.5 pounds. So, yeah.
Oh,
My dog is 80 pounds, so I guess it's the smallest, and it's not exactly a small dog. So.
Well, the other dog is also 80 pounds. She's a Malinois, so it's I've got my hands full around here, but yeah.
No,
Wow.
real quick, this keeps coming up. There's a lot of questions on Elon Musk and the black eye, so we might as well address that. Who would like to go first?
Well, I mean, I'll hit on it. I think that he happened to have spent the night with Mrs. Macron, and
Mister,
Mr. McCoy.
Mister.
Come on.
well, my question is, when would it be? When was the picture taken? What year?
I mean, it's a recent footage, but you have a great point.
Well, the official story is that it was X that punched him in the face, and I think that's plausible.
Yeah, he said it was one of his kids.
X, the kid, yeah.
Well, he has 13.
Well, I know, but the one that's always hanging out in the Oval Office.
True.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, hell of a thing.
but getting back to topic, where can we go, guys? I mean, seriously, where can we go when, like I said before, that we've gotten into a period in time, we've been in a period of time for a long time, where everybody's self-absorbed. Everybody sits around and waits for somebody else to take action for them. They don't want to do it themselves. Somebody else will take care of it. And we're as divided as we possibly can be in all kinds of directions. And you've got a situation whereby we might be finally on the precipice of all this happening. It's unsurvivable if we don't work together. Let's go reverse order. Joe and Scott.
Agreed. I don't know what more to add to that. I mean, unity is kind of something we're learning. I mean, we have we just returned to the Seattle area, which is arguably the nuttiest place in the country.
Which is a good percentage of the footage that Mark showed earlier.
Yes. And just telling the guys about the contrast between Costa Rica and here, and I talk about stepping back into the matrix. It's just crazy, but I don't know that we're going to achieve full unity. I think we're going to the folks that are committed to their TDS or whatever mind control insanity that they're under. I think it serves as an example. I think their actions in and of themselves will be unifying, because many people that might have the tendencies towards whether it's TDS or just the left or whatnot, in spite of all the damning evidence, they're still listening to CNN or whatever. I think there's got to be a point where they have to abandon that ship just to preserve any sense of themselves. So that insanity may in itself be unifying, if that makes any sense.
But even in the short term, just tolerance. Just tolerance.
Yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah, well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, honestly, if we had just tolerance, we probably wouldn't have been here in the first place, would we? Because the control mechanism has set it up for us to be intolerant. That's what the whole black and white construct is. You bad, me good. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. What I think is important, what I've figured out in this awakening, is I've learned personally that it's better to talk to people where they're at, not where I want them to be.
100%.
Because what happens when I start to immediately truth barf on something, I probably lost them for years. But if I slowly acclimate them to the conversation, virtually what the white hats do, and by the way, I got to be open. I call them gray hats because there's some things that are done in a psyop that make me uncomfortable. It is what it is, right? But when I see what the white hats do, it's total acclimation to the conversation, right? So I think we should take our cue from that and talk to people where they're at. So I ask questions, little teeny questions like, is it weird that on 9/11, the tower number 7 fell? And they go, many people say it did. That to me is crazy already, right? I'm saying, yeah, is it weird that a plane never hit it? Is it weird that it was on fire for several hours before it fell? Is it weird that in Great Britain they announced it 20 minutes before it actually fell? Do you find that to be odd? Is it weird that there was a big building between Tower 7 and the closest building that fell? Is it weird that it was over 300 feet away? You know, you ask these questions. The reason why I tend to ask questions is because although they may lie to you outwardly, they answer honestly inside their head.
Right.
And this is very, very important, in my opinion, in the awakening, because they can only continue to lie to themselves so much. And to reverse back to where you said, there may be 5% that would never come around no matter what, right? That's okay. That is okay. We don't need to force people into our positions. I believe, though, through acclimating them into the waters of the awakening, I really do believe that it'll stick longer. But here's where I believe we really have to pay attention. We, the people, need to own where we're at and own that it is because of us that we got here. It's not our fault. It's not our responsibility of what happened, but it is accountability that must be taken for us playing with our phones, not paying attention, make sure we got to make sure I go to every 100 or see every 162 baseball games there are in a year, you know, because the bread and circus is constantly has encompassed our lives, when we could have said, oh, wait, that's pretty satanic. Maybe I should mention something about that. Or why would that person treat that way? Or why is somebody not walking that old lady across the street? So we are accountable for where we're at. I don't believe we're going to heal as a nation until we start taking accountability. And as soon as we do, I believe that's when the awakening is going to go to a whole nother level. Because if President Trump came in on his white Pegasus and solved everything today, without us being part of the process and being accountable, we'd be right back here in probably a decade.
Yep.
We have to be part of it, and then we will reign for the golden era for the next 1,000 years.
100%.
You know, here I am in liberal capital of the United States, and yesterday I was at Trader Joe's, and this woman stopped this older woman to ask her if she could help her load her groceries into her car.
I haven't even heard this story.
Yeah, it totally made my day. I teared up. It was just beautiful.
Oh, so it's okay. I didn't know which direction it was.
Yeah,
gonna go.
no, I mean,
I thought she might have been offended or something.
no. It was a beautiful thing to see right here in you know, the heart of all that shit. That you know, this woman decided to stop and help this stranger.
Right. Well, I want to talk a little bit more to the Seattle events that are going on, because on X we follow Jonathan Cho and Brandy Cruz and Ari Hoffman, and they're very they're these bigger accounts in Washington State, and to see the Jonathan Chos and Brandy Cruzes going to these events, and to see that there's a rise of Christians in Seattle, and they're the majority, and they're calling out the mayor, and they're calling for the impeachment of the mayor. I mean, I know it's a little bit chaotic, but the fact that that's even happening at all in Seattle is amazing, an amazing paradigm shift. The summer of love, or whatever they want to call it, from 2020 to this, that the Christians are standing up, and they're you know, teaming up together to call for the impeachment of the mayor. And I don't know exactly where it is with the governor of Washington yet, but they're really digging in. And the fact that that's even happening, because I'll say this: if Washington turns, the whole fucking country can turn, because this is the worst damn place in the country, and we're starting to see it, and it's incredible. And as crazy and bad as it might look, the fact that it's even happening and we're starting to watch the shift at all is amazing to see. So good things are happening.
Great. Well,
I concur. I would just challenge you. Maybe California might be worse than Washington, but
I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean,
I'll give you one. Is there any 6-year-olds that are being required to change their sex by a judge in a county just because the mom thinks it should be, and even though the dad disagrees and he lost all his rights?
That I do not know,
wouldn't
but
surprise
wow.
me.
And that's
Wow.
wholesale. That's wholesale here, which blows me away.
Wow.
And that's a
Wow.
real simple solution. I mean, the age-old question: are you man or woman? Drop your pants, have a look. You got one, you're a guy. Ain't got one, you're not. It's not that difficult. Biology's not that difficult. What do you say, Patriot?
Well, you guys have made so many great points. I'll go back to some of the stuff that Lewis was talking about with Q. I completely agree, and it's all built into the drops. By the way, I mean, Q talks about. I mean, I could pull up a whole bunch of them right now. I won't do it just for the sake of keeping the conversation fluid. But we all remember. Sometimes you can't tell people the truth. You have to show them. Only then will people find the will to change. So people are the plan. I mean, there are many references to the military-civilian alliance. There are many references to being brought to the precipice. Only at the precipice will people find the will to change. So indeed, you're completely spot on as far as that goes, in my view. And I also think the way that you described the way that you approach trying to, I wouldn't say red pill people necessarily, but try to kind of break through that barrier that they have there. It's the same way that Q operated. How did we all get engaged with the Q drops early on? It wasn't because Q came out and just told us like this is the way it is. I mean, sure, there are a lot of assertions in the drops, but the most powerful are the ones that really use the Socratic method, engaging people in questions, asking questions, getting us to kind of think about, well, wait a second. And I think that's what's happening on kind of a macro scale right now through this ongoing reverse psyop that we're going through right now, is that it's forcing people, whether we're doing it on an individual level, the way Lewis described, whether Q did it with us early on to kind of generate this grassroots movement, but also through the continuity of government mainstream media model that they're using to reverse brainwash the people. They're forcing people, they're keeping them comfortable enough, because we all know it wouldn't work if you tried to kick down the door, and we don't need to hash that out because I think we all understand that and everybody in the audience does. But that's the way that the operation is playing out, is that it's forcing people. The white hats have control of the illusion machine behind the scenes, and of course we're all doing our part as well, but prompting people to gradually ask questions while they're still inside that illusion of their comfort zone, right? And I think that's really what's most effective in terms of prompting people to do exactly what we did such a long time ago. And with respect to Israel, yeah, I mean the Israeli people, if you pay attention to the mainstream media in Israel, they've been way ahead of the curve than in the U.S. in terms of red pilling their population. When you go back to the false flag attacks on October 7th, I mean, all over the Israeli media, they were running polls, and a vast majority, like 80-90% in some of these polls, were saying, oh no, this had to have been an inside job. Mm-hmm. We have the most secure border in the world. They can detect a literal grain of rice coming. So you're trying to tell us that these Hamas fighters came through on their little hand glide? Right. I mean, come on, it was just absurd on its face. But obviously, it's a very important distinction to make. I make it on every single show because I'm very critical of Israel. I have Mike King on, and we talk about Israel. It's almost like a weekly subject where we get into it, but it's always with the stipulation that these are not the first of all, it's not the Jewish people. Okay, it's the Zionists, it's the Khazarian mafia. Right. And that I do believe, and I've said this for a very long time, is that as this Great Awakening rolls out, I think it's going to become more and more obvious that the white hats are going to every length to make that distinction for people, because as they wake up and they start to become aware of all of these horrific crimes against humanity, and they keep hearing like the Zionists, they keep hearing the Jews, and that's been drilled into people's heads now for generations. You don't want people going out and targeting innocent people. I mean, that's the complete opposite of what we're aiming at here. So I think that I have confidence this, just like everything else, this operation is being run with military precision, and they've accounted for how they're going to explain this to the people, to educate the people of who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes. But yeah, you guys all made some. I mean, I'm just listening here, and writing things down. And but unity was another thing that came up. I'll just comment on that really quickly. Unity is in the drops 57 times. It's mentioned.
Wow.
America will be unified again. Crimes against humanity will unify all humanity cross party lines. Well, crimes against children, I actually misquoted that, but obviously they're one and the same. So yeah, that's really ultimately what this is all about, is dissolving the artificial division and unifying people by giving them the truth. That's the one thing. Well, it's not the one thing, but it's the biggest thing that we've been denied. That's been withheld from us. It's in my view, it's the root of all evil in society, in terms of the evil that the violence and the hatred that we perpetrate on one another, is because the truth has been withheld. And once that becomes clear and people come to realize that, there are far more people in this world. I mean, we have so much more in common than we do differences.
Yeah.
And the way that we've been conditioned to think is the exact opposite of that. Most people think that, it's like I mentioned, being very tribal, but that's the way that the cabal engineered the world. And I think that it's a slow grinding process. I completely agree with what Lewis said about, it's a military civilian alliance. We have to come together. People have to do their part. I think more and more we're seeing that. I started to really notice a massive difference, even going back to COVID. That pushed a lot of people over the edge. And a lot of people started to become, to activate in so many ways. That was one of the things that that prompted me to come forward and to be a part of the movement. And so many other people can say the same. The ultimate thing that pushed me over the edge, though, was the stolen election in 2020. But we're gradually revisiting all of these things, and they're peeling away the different layers of the onion. And I can't remember who said it, but I think it might have been Joe. Like, just when you start to think to yourself, man, like, when are we going to see the next big shoe drop? It's like, boom, we see it. Moab, right? And that's exactly what we got.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I want to say, I mean, I know we only have Lewis for a certain amount of time tonight, and I know he has a huge announcement tomorrow that we're not talking about today, but I just wanted to bring light to that. So Mark, so please.
Yeah, let me just interrupt you on that, because I didn't want to, when you get to be Lewis's age, you got to go and change your Depends. Too many candles on.
You have to throw
too many candles on the cake, and you have a fire hazard there. But Lewis does have to leave us early. He's got a party to get to. But before he goes, I just want to remind everybody that we will be actually simul streaming this on multiple platforms tomorrow, because he's got a very, very important announcement to make to everybody. And I encourage everybody to check our postings tonight, see the links, and get on and watch. If you're on the West Coast, it's going to be at 10 a.m. If you're on the East Coast, it's going to be at 1 p.m. And if you're in the middle, who gives a damn about you? No, if you're in the middle, figure it out on your own. But 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern, very important to watch. And in the interim, Lewis, I thank you for being here with us. Very, very happy and healthy birthday. Here's to another 600 happy and healthy ones to come.
Yes, that's right there, Sonny. I really appreciate you taking the time for my nap.
So thanks for that, guys. I just want to really brown nose here for just a second. Patriot Underground, I just really appreciate your knowledge. It just total rock star, and the way you dig in and the way you put into perspective what people think is a massive conspiracy, I think is just amazing. Total love to Joe and Scott for their relentless authenticity and bringing guests on your show that nobody would do because out of fear of doing so. And huge respect, as the show is titled, to Mark, from stepping out of the matrix of mainstream media and having the steel nuts to come on and do what you do. So guys, massive respect to all of you. I appreciate the time here. And tomorrow there's a huge announcement on the state of California, and I'm hoping it will be a game changer. At least it will definitely be part of the awakening. That's a guarantee.
Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you for the kind words. Right back at you, my friend.
And we'll see you in the morning.
Take
Can't
care.
wait.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Love you, Lewis.
All right. Take care, Dad.
Yes, I will.
You guys are brutal.
Hey, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Lewis.
He's brutal.
No, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Lewis. We love
That's
Lewis. He's
Very
family.
true.
I've never spoken to him before. It was really great to be on this panel with him. So have to do it
Yeah,
again.
he's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Really great
no,
guy.
I got to deal with Lewis because of the two of you, and then bringing Patriot on to finally meet him, and it's quite the crew. But he is good people. He is really, really good people.
Yeah.
and very, very smart. So
Indeed.
everybody, make sure that you watch that tomorrow.
It's
meantime-
rare that you encounter somebody with that kind of integrity. It's really truly rare in life. He's that good. Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely. So back on the topic, a lot of what people consider to be kind of the crux of the argument, we partially touched on before with the fact that a lot of what's been going on since this whole battle started has to be, looking at Israel, how much they talk about Israel and the blaming of the Jews, and not getting out that absolute division that Lewis brought out first, and then you guys brought up also, the difference between Zionists, the Jews, and the Khazarian Mafia. And of course, in the overall global picture, the governments themselves, the people who have committed the evils to everything that we've witnessed, everything that we're learning, everything that's gone on, are the leaders of these countries. And one of the things I've tried to present when I try to talk people off the ledge with this stuff is, other than Israel, you have no Jewish leaders in the world. Zero, kaput. So you move forward from that. But the crux of this being, no matter what religion you are, everybody has the same thought process. There is but one God. There's only one God. If you're Christian, he's the Father. If you're Jewish, he's God. Same thing with the Muslims, because they combine Christianity and Judaism. But the hatred and the intolerance that's been going around really revolves around the fact, as we said before, with the team mentality. But nobody seems to put together the thought that eventually we're all going to die, and we're all going to meet that one God. And how are you going to explain to him that in his name you acted this way towards your brothers or sisters? Patriot.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Listen, we can have a conversation that it's at an entirely different level than the masses out there. I think that so many people are just so filled with anger, and they don't know where to put it. And it's kind of like I was talking about a little while ago. It's like it goes hand in hand with having the truth withheld from them. You see that, and that's the difficult part about the paradigm that we face, is because maybe at a subconscious level, people recognize that they don't know the whole truth, that they're being lied to about things. They might even be able to articulate, oh yeah, we're being lied to about certain things, but they don't recognize the big picture. They don't recognize the wholesale deception, not just them and their people, whomever they identify with, whatever religion, nationality, group, etc., but all of humanity has been targeted. And that's where I think the unity is going to come from. And the fact that we don't see, like Lewis was saying when he was on, if we had tolerance, we wouldn't be in this position. If most people had, I don't even want to say most people. I think a lot of people, there are probably far more people out there that are tolerant than we're led to believe. That's the other thing, because the cabal always manipulates the information to make it seem as if a very small group that they're directing behind the scenes represent the masses. Right? They do that with everything. right? I mean, that's how they convinced the country that, more than half of the nation was liberal, when in reality, we're starting to find out very differently with the revelations about all the election fraud and so on and so forth. But they do that with everything, with, the transgenderism. They present a very, very small minority, and they project it as if it is the majority. So there are a lot of different angles that I could talk about there, but in the grand scheme of things, people are just so filled with anger and rage, and they don't know where to put it. That's engineered specifically by our universal enemy, and then directed at other people, other groups, because they recognize that's the easiest way to control people. You enrage them, you deprive them of the truth, you keep them poor, you keep them sick, you fill them with anger, and then you give them an enemy to hate. You're never going to have any problems in terms of staying hidden behind the scenes. And that's what they've done now for thousands and thousands of years. And that's what's going to be dissolved. And certainly, the Jewish question is a big one, because we all recognize that, again, not to kind of beat a dead horse here, but the cabal, the Zionists in Israel, are really the head of the snake, right? But it's a very tough sell to explain that to people, that it's not all Jews, right? And I think that it's a difficult, it's a very difficult bridge to gap. But I think, again, that we're going to see, as time goes on, that it's going to become more and more evident. I don't know, and none of us know how they're going to do it, how they're going to expose Israel, but certainly we've seen, or perhaps more specifically, how they're going to expose the Zionists. We're starting to see that major pivot. I mean, before this, we were just talking about Trump's retruth a moment ago. Before that, the big one was him distancing himself from Netanyahu. Right? For all this time, he's been, going through all these, playing the role for optics purposes. We all know what Q told us. How do you approach a dangerous animal? Do you let your enemies walk through the front door? All these, post Israel's being safe for last, on and on and on. And when we started to see Trump pivot away from Israel and separate himself from Netanyahu, and more Netanyahu, if you really believe that's the real one, and I mean, rock on, I don't, but they're being isolated. And then Trump goes on the trip to the Middle East. He goes back to Saudi Arabia, the very first country that he went to back in 2017. He's negotiating with Iran. He's sidelining Israel. So I think that's what they're going to do, is they're going to continually, but there's going to have to be a distinction, a very clear distinction that's made, so that people understand that, just like with any group of people, it's a very, very small minority that speak the loudest. It's even like on a smaller scale. It's like you go into the comments. Who are the loudest people in the comments? It's the trolls. It's the people who have an agenda. That's the way it works. And I think this is all part of recognizing their control structure, their control grid, and how they manage and suppress the population. So I'll leave it at that.
Right. I want to jump in real quick before I forget. So, and I totally agree with that usually about the trolls, but I got to say, the Joe Rogan Bono interview that just came out, the most glorious comments are not by trolls. There's so many people there just to read the comments, because they're so fed up with the bullshit of Bono, which was so great for me to see, because that was a big part of my awakening. But I do want to say this on another note. When they say this is biblical, and where it's really hitting me lately, is we've never seen humanity awakened stand up, inform each other of the depths of the lies, and share that with each other about what's really going on. And that's the part that's missing, I think, from the Bible and in the teachings. And when we finally see everyone unifying to say, no more bullshit, you're not going to get away with this, you're not going to hurt the children, that's the part in the history books that's missing. And that when that finally comes out, when that final glorious sun shining on all that truth, and humanity, and all of humanity finally really gets and grasps that, that's the beauty of what we're focused on right now, and what we're shining the light on. And it's just really hitting me right now how important this work is. Even this only reaches, hundreds or a couple thousand people. So many people are working on that at the same time, in unity, whether they're specifically working with others or not. But that's what we're all standing up for, because that's more important than anything else. And that's why I love doing shows with you guys, because that's the priority. Nothing else, not making money, nothing's more important than that. And there's nothing wrong if we can finally pay our bills. But the fact that we were willing, no matter what, to do this, I've never seen that before. I don't even know where to read back on that and see humanity standing up for the kids and each other like that. And that's the amazing part about what we're going through right now.
Well, yeah, you got to decide what kind of world are you willing to live with, and what kind of world are you not willing to tolerate. And just to respond to the Jew topic, I mean, I grew up in a lot of places, but one of them was a very Jewish place. My hockey coach was a Jew. I had a ton of Jewish friends, still do. Some of my closest friends are Jewish. And part of it is the obfuscation. Is it a nation? Is it a race? Is it a religion? And that's all been purposely played and manipulated. And when I talk to my Jewish friends, they don't really have an understanding of any of those things. They really don't. And they all tell me, well, we don't really talk to each other about it. But they all seem to be afflicted with the trauma associated with this story. And they don't know about the Khazarian Empire. They don't know about the Sabbatean Frankists. They don't know about the imposters. This goes way, way back. And very few people are educated on this. And what's happening now, hopefully this will be the wake-up call, because every time you look, everybody wants to identify the enemy. It's important in combat. You got to identify the enemy. But it's just not that easy, because people are individuals. And as long as we remember to honor the individual as the smallest minority, well, everybody's honored in that. And you have to see the God in everyone, or at least you have to try. And I think the time for this manipulation with regard to Jews needs to be over. And like I said before, there's a lot of Israelis right now risking their lives, and it truly is risking their lives to try and point these things out. It is a genocide. They are creating concentration camps. I mean, the irony of that is shocking and palpable. And it's a huge part of the puzzle. And what Q said, saving Israel for last. Well, I think people are starting to identify this as a much more complex issue.
Well, but it also, excuse me, it also goes back to what I was saying before in regard to each group policing and educating their own. Because if you take, for instance, take Israel for last, what's it going to be like when Israelis, American Jews, Jews anywhere, come to realize that the Mossad created Hamas, that Mossad helped to wire the towers on 9/11, when they find out that, or when they have to come to the acceptance and realization, as Mike King wrote his book, the Never-Ending Song, never again, Holocaust. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. However, the Nazis killed Jews, they killed Christians, they killed priests, they killed gypsies, they killed homosexuals, they killed the infirm, the elderly, anybody who didn't fit the mold to help them with their cause was either put into a camp to work, or they were put into a camp for death. And I think there were well over 12 million people who were killed by the Nazis, and it has nothing to do with just being Jewish. And where a lot of, and I credit my wife with this, with the fact that, while a lot of Jews scream never again from the line from the Holocaust, look at what occurred between 2020 and recently with COVID. one of the biggest global holocausts we've ever been through. Nobody woke up to never again with that.
Mm.
Only the white hats who were aware of it. So people have to start again realizing what each group has to realize, re-educating and reformatting and growing together to do what they can do. So, and Scott.
Thoughts?
Well, I mean, he's got such a big topic. Yeah, I kind of question the whole saving Israel for last, as if it's such a key piece on the board. You know, I mean, this really does uncover an awful lot of it. You know, it goes to Switzerland, you know, via banking. It goes to, by extension, the Vatican, City of London, you know, and then, of course, DC. I mean, they're all connected. These are the power structures. And, you know, you got to wonder, the folks behind this, ultimately, are they even human? Because the atrocities that have stemmed from these groups and their effort to control everything, which they've been highly successful with, you know, what kind of human would be capable of hatching such plots? And, you know, we watched unfold, and, you know, it's I mean, I've studied this stuff for years, and I'm still routinely shocked and horrified. Imagine the folks that have been laboring under the you know, the official story for so long. You know, I mean, even 9/11. Remember a time when you couldn't even bring up 9/11 without offending someone? You didn't dare question the official story. It was a very controversial subject. I remember when it happened, I was repairing an air conditioner, and my immediate thought was, this is a fundraiser, you know, and Rumsfeld had just come out and said, you know, they'd lost trillions of dollars at the Pentagon. So, I mean, it all seemed to make sense right then and there in that moment. But I didn't dare talk about it because people were very emotional and upset. I remember talking to my girlfriend about it, but that's about as far as that conversation went.
She was usually emotional upset.
And now, no, not her. No,
Can you
Sorry.
blame
not her. But you know, here we are years later, and you know, we're talking about 9/11. I mean, it's back.
Finally, Tucker Carlson is talking about
God
9/11.
damn right, and I'm so
Jesus
impressed with that. You know, I mean, these are the things that are very important. What about when? What was the truth that Trump posted about all roads lead to Obama?
Mm.
Yeah, military tribunals.
We're getting into the thick of it, gentlemen. It's real exciting now.
Yep.
Don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I mean, 9/11 truth. I think that's one of the reasons Israel's being saved for last, quite frankly. And I mean, again, I don't like to get too far into speculation anymore. I used to entertain it a lot more than I do nowadays. But let's just say that it wouldn't surprise me if the script writers engineered it so that the takedown of the Zionists comes from within. Because I think that would be one of the best ways to mitigate that threat. I mean, certainly, you know, your average Jew in the U.S. They don't have a clue about any of the stuff that we're talking about. Not a clue. Right. You know, so you know, and you hear a lot of the time that people are saying, well, the counter argument when people like myself or any of you guys or Mark say, well, it's not the Jewish people, it's the Khazarian mafia, and we go to great lengths to make that distinction. The counter argument you often hear is, well, then why aren't the Jews pointing out the difference, right? And I think that is ultimately where this is headed. You're going to see more and more and more of that. It's going to be rooting out that evil from within, so as not to create the impression that it is all Jews. Right. So that not all the Jews circle the bandwagon and say, you know, we're going to stand with Israel to the bitter end. You really think that's going to be the case if the truth about 9/11 comes out? That American Jews are going to say we still support Israel? I think not. They're probably going to be the first ones demanding justice, and they're going to be at the forefront saying, "How dare you perpetrate this crime in our name?" Not to mention the thousands of years now that that the cabal has been has hijacked the Jewish religion as a shield. So I think that's probably, in my estimation, is probably one of the most effective ways to red pill people, but also to to script out the movie, because we know at the end of the day, the Zionist structure, that government has to be brought to justice. This is a question of how you do it so that it doesn't turn into a massive tinderbox, and you've got vigilantism and all those types of things, to make that distinction. And I also think that again, more and more you're going to start to see the counter argument that I mentioned a moment ago. Well, where are the Jews pointing this out? Why is it always the non-Jews? Well, because they don't know, but eventually they're brainwashed just like the rest of the population. But just like you guys, I mean, first of all, Mark is Jewish. He's one of my closest friends. I have many Jewish friends, people that I love, that are near and dear to me. This is why I go to great lengths to make that distinction. But the masses don't really understand that yet, but they're going to.
We're going to fall into the same thing with. Why do you think? And we know that it's white hat controlled. Why do you think, for the first time ever, they chose an American pope, not just an American pope, but an American pope who has been known to have let pedophile priests off the hook?
100%.
So what's going to happen with all the Christians who flock to Vatican Square to see El Papa on the balcony there, and they have to come to the realization of the Vatican's role, and just all of this, all of the people who are going to have to be really not awakened, but jarred out of their sleep and say, "Schmuck, look at what's been going on." And this is the whole thing. You don't, I think the closer you are to a situation. So if you're Jewish, you don't see what the Jews are doing. If you're Christian, you don't see what the Christians are doing. If you're Muslim, you don't see what the Muslims are doing. The closer you are to a situation, the less likely you are to be able to see and understand what your group is doing. And mainly because you don't want to see it.
Right.
But Mark, isn't it? The intelligence apparatus that's really the tip of the spear on this. I mean, Kennedy hit it with his speech about covet means and secret societies, and we're trying to identify the enemy by looking at large groups of people. Who funded Hamas? Who funded the Taliban? How was ISIS created? These were all. This was all largely theater. It remains theater. 9/11. How was that accomplished? Mossad, but certainly without the help of the CIA, they couldn't have done it.
Well, they were there with them.
And the way we look at the Jews, a lot of countries look at the United States. I mean, we are the great white Satan in many, many, many places around the world, for much the same reasons. And, we're American. We didn't have anything to do with that. But our CIA certainly did. The FBI certainly helped out. There's an awful lot of intelligence agencies that assisted. My dad's best friend was the federal firearms trainer for all federal law enforcement divisions. And he asked me, this was prior to 9/11, he asked me, how many federal law enforcement divisions do you think there are? And I went through the list, and I came up with about 11. And he said there are 70. And this was before Homeland Security, which more than doubled that number. Mm-hmm. A lot of these guys, there's no record of their existence. But we fund it. We fund it with our labor. We fund it with our taxation. And I'll tell you what, if people really want to make a difference, they'll stop paying taxes. But we can't be looking at groups of people that way. We need to be looking at the apparatus. We got to sharpen our skills a little bit on this stuff. And Kennedy did, and I think that's what got him killed. Or maybe not. But
Right. Yeah. Well, but I think a microcosm of that is, we have a friend named David who's come on our show a few times. Is you got your gays against groomers, you've got your lifetime lesbians that have stated that if they ever thought it was going to get to the point where it is now, they would have never, fought for what they fought for. They were fighting for equality, and now it's way beyond that. And now they're starting to say, hey, wait a second. We're fine with gay, lesbian, bi. We don't need the transsexual, all the other parts of it, LGBTQ, adding the children to it. They're starting to see that. And I think if I guess the good part of what I'm saying is that if they're starting to see that within their own community, that maybe the Jews are starting to wake up and go, wait a second, hey, yeah, we're Jewish, but we don't want to be part of this whole Khazarian part that's hiding within the Jews and doing this stuff to children. So I think we're really starting to see that. And I guess my point for those folks out there that feel this is taking a long time is look how far we've come in the last 5 years. I mean, Trump is literally saying Joe Biden is a clone. That's huge. Like, it really hit me when Scott said it. I didn't get the gravity, and I'm like, okay, this is a tweet. And he's like, no, Joe, Trump retweeted that. Like, think of the significance of that. I was like, holy shit, it really hit me this morning to know what that meant.
I got to point out this comment from
Is it about the circumcision?
No, Dukas just says, my son's a lesbian.
That's funny because Scott identifies as a lesbian.
Well, I have it from time to time, but we live in the Northwest. We have gay friends. If you didn't, you wouldn't have any friends around here. But we were sitting around with a couple of gay friends and talking about, you guys need to get on top of this because the pedophiles are really
infiltrating.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time if you don't get behind this, and a lot of them did. And
wait a minute, you just said you have gay friends, and they told you to get on top of this, and then they want to get behind you.
Well, Mark,
I was thinking the same thing, but I'm glad I wasn't privy to that.
I'm sure there was a few opportunities.
Look, Scott's going to get to the bottom of this real soon.
You guys are.
No, but they knew the writing was on the wall. They knew, and gays against groomers is a really great example.
But you understand why a lot of this is going down. Here we go. Going down the way that it's going down is
it's spiraling.
I feel like a kamikaze pilot at this point. But the reason it's going down the way that it's going down is because, especially when you take it from the religious view, you look at what you were just talking about with the gays and how they feel about the grooming, how they feel about the transsexuals and this and that and the other. And what it does, it shines the light on you. And it says, you just got your rights 10 years ago. People recognize the gays have been around for a long time. You have the equal rights to get married, et cetera, et cetera. Then you got these clowns coming out. And it makes a mockery of what these people fought for. Gays have been around forever, okay? But now you got these clowns who feel that, they want to be a parrot tomorrow, so you got to call me a parrot. And then society goes, oh, you've got to go along with that because we have to treat everybody fairly. No. And it's the same thing with when it comes to Israel and the Middle East. Look at what's going on there. And when you find out about 9/11, you find out about how the CIA and Mossad did 9/11, how the CIA and the Mossad created Hamas, and all of these secret agencies doing the things that they're doing to pit people against each other, because that's how they create all the wars. That's how they get their money. And as long as they keep us in perpetual wars and fighting against each other, we don't watch what they're doing to us. Patriot, you were ready to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I think you guys are really hitting the nail on the head here. I think that the real driving force behind the awakening of who the Zionists really are, the Khazarian mafia. A little bit earlier, I mentioned the Israeli mainstream media is way ahead of the curve. We have to remember this is a worldwide operation. Okay, you think there aren't white hats in Israel? You think that there is not some control over the media? I would probably say a complete control over their media as well, at least in my opinion. But even here in the United States, we're seeing Jeffrey Sachs. He's been one of the leading voices critical of Israel, a Jewish guy. Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, talking about how this Israeli government, this Zionist government, is not our friend. So I think that's where so much of a lot of the red pilling is coming from, is going to be, whether it's organic or whether it's manipulated, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, as long as it happens. I think probably most of it is being manipulated, but to that end, it's going to be, I think, become more and more clear as time goes on, as more is exposed about Israel, that it's coming from the Jewish people themselves, or it's coming from the Israeli people themselves, about their own government, about their own intelligence agencies. It's going to be coming from Jewish people within the mainstream media blowing the whistle. I think we're going to see more and more of that. And not just with regard to Judaism, but or Israel, I should say, but with regard to the Vatican, with regard to, somebody brought up the Pope a little while ago. I think that's kind of a trend that I've noticed developing in terms of the disclosure process. So much of it is coming from within. Trump has called it the enemy within over and over and over and over. So you have to expose. What's the best way to expose the enemy? Well, you do it by exposing it from within. How often did Q talk about infiltration?
Yep.
Right. So I think that's what we're going to be seeing as time goes on. So yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've never made bones any other direction about the fact that I'm Jewish. But one thing I've said to people for years, and people know I've spent a lot of time down in Florida over the past year. And one of the things that I've said for a long time is I really prefer the west coast of Florida to the east coast of Florida. Why? East coast of Florida, too many New York Jews. It's not that I have anything against Jews, but it's the mentality. It's that we are all so frustrated with everything that's gone on, how long this has taken. We're awake, we know what's going on, and yet it's dragging. And it's dragging because of people like that who refuse to, they've got the blinders on and they don't see beyond their own noses. And that's not a Jewish joke, but they don't see beyond their own noses. And it just gets to be stupid after a while. And you don't want to be around these people.
Yeah.
Mark,
That's why I'll just interject really quickly on that, and then I'll pass it over to you. But that's why they're having people. I mean, those New York Jews that East Coast Jews that you just described, where do they get their information? The New York Times.
Right.
And what are they seeing in the New York Times now? They're seeing articles from Thomas Friedman, who's like a liberal god, saying, well, wait a second here. We might want to take a closer look at this whole, Israeli government, this whole U.S. Relationship with Israel. That's how you gradually bring people along. It's like we've seen it in every other category. It's a slow, grinding process. The way Mike King describes it is we keep pushing the ball up the field and getting a first down. It's not going to be an all in one fell swoop. They have to build up to it. But they get more and more people with this predictive program, and they plant the seed. Like he says, they keep their liberal street cred, but at the same time, they're planting these truth gems in there. They're planting the seeds, predictive programming, and gradually that's how you move the needle of public perception. And if there's one thing we've learned, that's what this operation is about. That's the informational aspect of this operation, is that they're reversing the brainwashing. They're doing it very, very slowly and methodically.
Yep. Yep.
But they're doing it. I think it was Lewis who mentioned earlier, they're meeting people where they're at. They understand that the military understands where these people are. They know how brainwashed they are. They know what they're up against. You think that they don't know the best way to reach these people? And that's exactly what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing play out right now. But go ahead, Joe, you were saying something.
Well, I was going to say it's kind of a joke, but kind of a serious question. Mark, what would you identify as?
heterosexual
if
male.
you're not an East Coast New York Jew, as far as like the typical, you know, what you're saying is like the East Coast of Florida is the kind of the New York Jew. What would where would you say your I guess outlook lies? How would you describe yourself since you're not the atypical New York Jew?
Well, no, I am the atypical New York Jew.
Okay, okay.
Problem. You know, it's yeah, atypical, not the typical.
Right, the typical. So as the atypical, how would you where who do you relate to most? I suppose maybe there isn't a physical location.
John
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna step away for 1 second.
Okay,
You know what it
please.
is? One of the ways that I look at it, and this goes back to, geez, when I was still a teenager. Most people used to refer to me as the most anti-Semitic Jew on the face of the earth, because my phrase has always been, I'm not prejudiced. I hate everybody equally.
Right.
And that's really the way that I play it. I don't play favorites.
It's your punk rock.
Love it.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I do not play favorites. If somebody is, I have a very strong sense of right and wrong, which is why I do this show. I have a very strong sense of right and wrong. And I don't care if you're my people or you're not my people. If you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
You know, when I
Yeah.
sit and I look at how many of the Hasidic community, and believe me, it's not just the Hasidic Jewish community. You see it in the Black community, you see it in the poor white community, abuse the welfare system, abuse the Medicaid and food stamp system. It's ridiculous. And I'm sorry, when you could be off the system and helping your fellow man, no, you're a maggot. And I don't care if you're Jewish, if you're Christian, or anything else. And this is the delineation that people have to start to accept and get away from. Well, it's the Jews, it's the Christians, it's the Muslims. No, okay, because I've said this a billion times too, there is no DNA test that's going to prove that I'm Jewish or that you're Christian. Zero. Because we're all just humans. We all
Well
have the
said.
same organs unless you're a female or you're a male. But you have to
Pretty
explain that to
straightforward.
some people nowadays. So, you know, this is the type of situation that we're in. But people, again, and Patriot just used the term, they're so brainwashed
Yep.
by their quote unquote governmental, religious, or other leadership, and generationally, that they believe they're bullshit. And they've got, who either has a cat or is farting? Which one is that? I don't know what's going on there, but I'm hearing it in the background. But
The dog is snoring.
The dog is
I was
farting
gonna
and
say,
snoring.
is that the lion dog snoring over there?
Oh,
It's-
my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, the snoring is not nearly as bad as the gas. So I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
Scott had to get up to open a
yeah, I
window.
opened the door and it's helping to a very small degree.
Yeah.
I think
I-
you're right, though, Mark. I think what they're doing is they're reversing the identity politics that
Yeah.
people have been so thoroughly indoctrinated with, especially on the left. That's what the left is. That's their whole business model, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton came out and said, "How are we going to win? More division, race war, divide." You know, that's how they do business, and they've been very, very effective with it over many, many decades because they've been in control of the media for well over 100 years.
Yep.
And they've had they've had the bullhorn this entire time. And guess what? Now we do.
well, I've said it from the get-go. If we weren't at the point with the internet now, with high-speed internet, global internet, the availability of information, what we are doing as white hats, as patriots, would be impossible. Because just like the mainstream media, you know, If the internet wasn't here, we don't have 50,000 watts behind us. We can't put our information out to millions of people, but here we can. But the people have to be willing. You could, as a student of silver mind control, I could send out healing energy to anybody. But if the person on the other end is not open to receive that energy, ain't going to happen. Well, if the people listening to this aren't willing to accept and make a change and be tolerant and get along with their fellow man or woman, it can happen.
Yeah, and once we realize that we've all been victimized, I mean, we already know, of course, but the masses, once the masses realize that we've been universally targeted, that's where the unity is going to come from, and the division just dissolves at that point. I mean, even if you just took it like, a hypothetical, you said to a normie, well, how would you feel about the world? How would your worldview change if you suddenly became aware, and it was proven to you that all of humanity had a common enemy that was hidden behind the scenes? I mean, of course, they all think that's our ridiculous conspiracy theory, but once and gradually we're building up to exposing that. We're getting ever closer to doing that. They would probably say, well, if you took the politics out of it and you got people to just, think organically and naturally for a moment and take their guard down and their defenses down, they would probably admit that would radically change their worldview. If there was some sort of a hidden enemy that was pitting all of us against one another and at the same time victimizing, let's not forget, the shot heard round the world. What's that going to be? Maybe it's going to be this, and that's just one of many, many, many examples of how we've all been targeted. We've all been poisoned. We've all been lied to. We've all been oppressed in various different ways. And once the penny drops on that, I think all of that stuff goes away. I really do. The identity politics, it's already on its last legs. I mean, there are so few people out there in terms of the demographic. If you look at the U.S., I mean, the race baiting stuff doesn't work anymore, right? The all of the labels, they don't work anymore. That's actually, that dog sound. It almost sounds like somebody's driving by on a motorcycle in the distance.
Nudge him a little bit. He stopped snoring.
Way off topic. Way off topic. But
speaking of off topic,
hell of a nudge.
I want to dispel the speculation in the chat. Joe and I are not a couple.
Never have been, never will be.
But to quote Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets, if that did it for me, I'd be the luckiest man in the world. Yeah. But yeah.
Although since I'm straight, he'd really be frustrated.
Because it
would
that mean?
It wouldn't do it for me, but it would do it for you.
No, but remember the movie was.
Yeah, no, I'm just
meet Simon the Fag. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a phenomenal
great movie.
Yeah, some of Nicholson's best work. Yeah.
No, but it's funny because when I first started doing this stuff, and I spent my entire career behind the scenes. I was producing the Scott Mowry's. I forget what it's called now, but he did a weekly show every Sunday, and half the time I was usually exhausted when we got there, and I was producing the show and really running everything from my basement. And one Sunday I was just wiped, and a very, very close friend of mine used to watch the show, and he calls me the next morning and goes, "Did Scott have gas?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I kept hearing, and I started to laugh. I said, "That was me snoring. I fell asleep during the show."
Oh, geez.
So I can relate to the dog.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, I'm picturing Dave.
Well, I said the same exact comment to Dave that you just said to Joe.
Yeah.
About no, we're not a couple. We're not a couple. And if we were, I think I could do a lot better than Dave. So because you want to have that hair to grab onto. So Man, we're really taking this religious thing right down the tube.
Well, you know, like Seinfeld and some of the comments. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Remember that episode? Yeah.
But where do we go from here, guys? I mean, really, how do we right this ship?
I think
Well,
Okay.
I think ship is part of the word, and the other part is censor. And as these shows, as these channels can really grow and really get out there, and we really see some of these restrictions. And I'll say this: this is another I'm not even trying to keep things positive. I think I'm just generally really positive, especially since the experience in Costa Rica that Scott and I had. I was able to shut off a lot of things, the daily routine stuff, obligations, family things, etc. And you know, there's a documentary that Mickey Willis was just part of releasing, and I think we just put it on our channel, and I'll pull this up for people. We've been posting a lot of documentaries, just so people know, because they're incredible. And this documentary was called "Follow the Silenced," and the fact that that documentary is all over YouTube, and it's about the group of people that are vaccine injured, and they didn't have anyone to relate to until they met each other, and that the film is about them, you know, for the first time being able to talk to someone and feeling, you know, that they were finally taken seriously, and there was camaraderie, and that's all over YouTube. It's incredible. So I think we're starting, and we're pushing it a little bit, because, you know, I've been part of, I don't know, 5 or 6 YouTube channels that have been banned. We're on our 10th X. Bruce, you're snoring.
You just put your
We're on-
foot.
We're on our, I've tried everything. We're on our 4th TikTok. But the fact that a Mickey Willis film is on YouTube and it's not being taken down is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
I think that's really the only thing. And I'll say this. We have a liaison at Rumble. I just re-edited, speaking of Unity, I just re-edited a video that Lewis Herms, who was just on, had me write a song called "To Unite," and our liaison at Rumble reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm posting it," and we didn't ask for any of it. It had like, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 views. It now has nearly 80,000 views. So I'm really starting to see things open up, and I think that's the only thing that's been stopping us is the censorship. Because once that's gone, you're going to watch Patriot Underground have 1 million followers. You're going to watch News Tree. You're going to watch these channels really open up, because people are hungry for it, especially when Trump's mentioning cloning. We just interviewed a woman called Lady D a couple months ago that basically was hanging out with the clone of Bono.
Yeah.
And we have no way of proving this per se, but it wouldn't surprise me. And she's a wonderful human being, and she's Italian. Like, how can we not love this woman? And we're really starting to see this stuff open up. And I think that as we see this paradigm shift, that people that thought we were nutters, they're really actually starting to think, wow, these are, you know, intelligent, articulate, and thank you to one of the lovely women in here, attractive men. Hey, we'll take that. So I think we're willing to put ourselves on the front lines. And I think that this is what people notice about the 5 of us, including Lewis and many other people we've had on our show, especially Lewis. But we all care more about humanity than what people think about us. Yeah. That's the bottom line. I don't give a shit about what people think, because we got in this to fight for children. And if people have a problem with that, I have nothing. I have nothing to say to them, because that's the best reason to stand up in the world, is for kids.
When you said censorship, I was thinking fellowship, because that's what we're doing here.
Sure.
You know, and that's what our audience is doing in the comment section, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, you know, the fake news is over. This is how we exchange our ideas. This is how we create our future. is together. That is fellowship. So you're certainly right about the ship part.
The ship part means that there's a
And
lot.
I
here.
don't mean to downplay the censorship
No,
part
but
either,
absolutely.
because
But fellowship's more like unity
we're
anyway.
breaking through. We
Absolutely.
are breaking through, and
Yeah.
We,
what an honor.
we really are very rapidly becoming the new media, and
Yeah.
and we're just at the very, very early stages of that. Just to give you an example, okay, I was just kind of spitballing with the Trump's retruth. Okay, I put out a post about that on X this morning, just spitballing, kind of just relaying what I said earlier about how it's kind of, it's revealing the existence of a military operation. It's signaling disclosure. It's already, I mean, I have less than 7,000 followers on X, and that post already has about 113,000 views
Oh shit!
since this
That's
morning.
fantastic. I'm going to make it
Well,
114,000.
Yeah.
So, it just goes to show you that I don't have a big presence on X, but when people see the truth, they're hungry for it.
Yep.
And that is it's just going to continue to spread like wildfire as soon as this, the deeper we get into this process. And the other thing is, Joe, you mentioned a little bit earlier, you brought up the whole black eye thing, not to change the subject here, but it did remind me of a post that a guy that I follow on X goes by Ripcord, great account to follow, by the way. He pointed to Q drop 2615. I'll just go ahead, Mark, and pull that up really quick just so people can see it. I can bring that up. You pull that up?
There you go.
There it is.
As another indication that we're getting closer. 2615, Q writes, no, reports of power grid attacks, 6 months prep should be disregarded. While attacks do occur, we are safeguarded by a black eye.
Right.
A black guy.
I did hear that, a black eye,
Oh.
Yeah.
not a black guy.
Yeah.
Got all excited about a black guy.
No,
Yeah,
I just
so-
because the Obama's a black guy,
That's well.
allegedly.
Which one?
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Both
And
of
it
them
wasn't
are
the
black.
same eye, by the way. It was the different eye that they usually have for the Black Eye Club. We know all about that. So I think
Yeah,
there was
right.
might have been some comms going on with that. So figured I'd throw that in there too. But yeah, we're definitely every single day, every time we do one of these shows, we're breaking new ground. We're reaching more people, and people are hungry for the truth. The truth is popular.
And that's a key. I mean, that is why we're here. We're not here. You've heard me say this a billion times too, but none of us are making any money on this. None of us are sitting here with Nielsen boxes in people's homes trying to get the most ratings and this and that and the other. We're here trying to reach and educate an audience. And in my case, not just trying to educate them, but trying to unite them. My whole purpose has been unifying the patriots and unifying the truthers. That's why I love doing shows like this, where we've got a bunch of people on working together, talking a good subject, but still having a good time, and waking people up to what's going on and trying to help them to understand how important unity is. That's what it's all about. That's the only way we're going to have legs. That's the only way we're going to move forward. We've got to have that unity.
Well, Mark, I want to point something out. I know a lot of people are adverse to the idea of AI, but it's happening whether you like it or not. But we're educating AI, and our voices need to be heard. And as many people that get out there and speak the truth, that's the reference for AI. They've been listening to the narrative, which is dominated by a lot of lies and bullshit.
We're like Carol said.
Like Carol said,
We are by, and there's a lot of these videos on Instagram. By the questions we're asking the AI, we're reprogramming it. And I've had a lot of back and forth with AI, but when Carol said that, because Carol is someone we really admire, and she's very wise, and I mean, heck, I'm dropping honey in my eyes now to bring back my vision. I'm wearing linen. Like when you meet a healer and someone that really wants to help people, it's incredible. I mean, her wisdom, and she just plugged she plugged us right into this beautiful group of people in Costa Rica. Like Mark Atwood is going to plug us into a beautiful group of people in Ireland. And someone saying they would like to meet us. I think this group, and I think this fall we've got to do an event in Florida, and we've got to do an event up near the Boston area. Like, and if you guys, if you're interested in that, of course we want to do that. But the point is if we're the ones asking the questions and we're the one, I mean, think of the timing of AI. Think of what people are asking it. Think of the people that are newly waking up, that are maybe not watching shows like this yet because they don't know exactly where to look, but they're asking about whether it's Antarctica or the jab or whatever. It's really kind of interesting that AI is coming out. I mean, like Scott said, AI has been around for a very long time, but how has humanity interacted with it or used it? I think we're really starting to see that. And so the point is if we're asking questions that can help AI articulate, some of these answers, I think it really can be a beautiful tool.
Absolutely. Oh, wow.
Hi, Charlie.
This is the smaller of the two.
Yes, the less smellier.
She's a ham. She
Of the
wants to be
two.
part of the show.
Well, no, a big part of what we're doing is awakening people. But, even going back to the original topic tonight, the religion, humility is a big part. And part of what destroyed the mainstream media, besides going from journalism to editorialism, was ego. And I think, I can honestly say about the five of us tonight, I don't think there's a shred of ego here. We're here doing what we're doing because it's important to us. And we're here doing what we're doing because it's for the future. And we want to help people. We've got an end game to it. But once you throw the ego in there, everything gets muddled. Everything gets destroyed. And going forward with this, when we sit and we look at the different truthers that are out there, and you'll see a lot of them fall to the sidelines just because of the fact that they're doing the same things that the MSM did. So a lot of things are going to disappear. But we are the new media. We are the new news. And with that, we have a responsibility to uphold. And that's to continue doing what we're doing the way that we're doing it.
Mark, do you think that this, in some people's perspectives, that this has been drawn out years? Someone asked if we don't have like a shred of ego. No, I mean, it's good to have at least a little bit of a healthy ego, not an ego.
Alive.
Yeah, but I'm thinking part of, and here's a perfect example. I told my sister-in-law 4 years ago that, Tom Hanks is gone and blah, blah. And then, of course, a few more years come out and he's still, or whoever looks like him or his brother, is making movies. If I had an ego in the game, after a while, that was like, now it's like, okay, I'm humbled. I just want to share what's going on and have people wake up. Like, if I had an ego, that went out the window like in the first year, because I'm just like, I don't even know how to respond to her now. She's like, well, what about the new Tom Hanks? I can't sit there and go, well, your friend got a picture with Tom Hanks over in Sun Valley in 2024. And yeah, that's likely not him. Like, she's not going to believe any of that. So I think part of this being drawn out is to quell if there was an ego. Like, I don't think that really is around for so many of us now.
Well, but I don't think that it's really ego. I think it's a matter of, same thing, again, going back to religion, same thing with religion. Everybody's got their beliefs. We know what's going on. Those are our beliefs. And we know, and that's why I carry on my phone a split screen picture of Joe Biden and the actor. And you can look at that split screen and there ain't no way in hell anybody's going to be able to say it's the same person. So, always got the big boy there. Big boy.
You
What?
can't see, it's not on camera, but he's just in love with Joe right now.
Hi, Bruce.
It's a- I mean, you just got to see this.
Oh my
There he is. That's how big he is.
wow.
It's like a walrus. I mean, look at that.
Oh my god. Okay, lay down. Lay down. Okay. Hi, Charlie. I know.
Yeah, he's got
I
them both.
know.
They're all
Oh,
excited.
geez. There's Charlie.
Wow,
Let me get the camera back where it was.
that is a big dog.
Okay, get down.
Yeah.
Big dog. But like I said, I think that it's just a matter of knowledge and not of ego. We're not coming from, at least I can say I'm not coming from a place of ego. I'm strictly coming from a place of, when it comes to the media, I'll argue that point with anybody. I know what I'm talking about. I put in my half century. And, I come from a position of knowledge and I can talk to people in that sense. But the people who are in it just thinking that they have that Nielsen box in their house and thinking they're going to increase their audience by saying the things that they're saying and, clickbaiting, et cetera, they're going to end up falling by the wayside. And the people who stuck to what this whole thing is about will rise to the top.
Agreed.
Well said.
I agree.
Integrity and authenticity. I mean, that's everything, and that's what. It's where we're at. You can see straight through it. I mean, even Bongino, who we love, and Cash Patel, who we love, they were lying through their freaking teeth, and everybody knew it.
Oh, and on that, so I would love to get both, but I want to hear Patriot Underground's assessment of that whole shit show, please. What do you think's going on there?
I think what they're doing is what we've been seeing them do with the whole Epstein thing right from the beginning. Is they're creating a spectacle out of it, and they're trying to create. I can't necessarily say because we're not in on the script writing. We don't know exactly where they're going next.
Right.
But the one thing that we've been saying over and over is how do you get more eyes on? How do you get more people to pay attention?
Yep.
You create controversy. Yeah, and even if that means putting out information that is just blatantly on its face not true. I think that's part of it is having people say, holy crap, that's BS. we all know he didn't kill himself. I mean, Epstein didn't kill himself has been a meme now for what, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. So we all know that. It doesn't have the effect of making some people who don't understand what they're doing cynical and black-pilled. Yes, but that's unfortunate. They just don't understand the game that the White Hats are playing because they don't really get that the chessboard is about achieving that mass consensus. Ricardo Bossi, you mentioned him a little bit earlier, and I love the man. He said on my show, and he just nailed it, that the high ground in every war are the hearts and minds of the people. And you have to get everybody on the same page. And when you're dealing with, like we've been talking about tonight, a society that's so deeply brainwashed and so deeply divided and so deeply tribal, how do you break through? How do you create that cognitive dissonance? Well, I think we're watching it play out in real time. That's my take on it.
Well, that's what a PSYOP is. You're
Right.
going to put out not just to the people who don't get it, but even to the people who do get it. You're going to put out misinformation when misinformation is necessary. This is a military operation. The military operates on a need-to-know basis. We don't need to know. Simple as that.
And there's
That's
always going to be another shoe to drop. We know that too. I mean, no sooner does everybody get all up in arms about a situation, then there's another curveball that they throw in there that we never saw coming. I mean, Bongino said that he's going to release. I mean, he's been saying that don't worry, stuff's going on behind the scenes just because you can't see it. And he's been actually mirroring a lot of the Q drops in the process. But he's been saying that they're going to release footage of him in his cell, proving that he was alone. Well, we had heard the story we had heard was that footage was gone.
Right.
So again, it's kind of creating this. Well, wait a second. I mean, who's lying to us? And we also have to remember that the movie's not for us. It's not for us. We already know. I mean, do we know definitively what happened to Epstein. Is he, was he suicided, or is he in protective custody somewhere? I mean, we can't answer those types of questions, but we damn sure know he didn't kill himself, right? And there's
Well, we're at the advent of AI being indiscernible. I mean, I'm talking, like AI we all have access to being indiscernible from reality. It's really, really convincing. So
I think that's
I
part.
think there's a larger point here. I think, if you look at what DARPA's been playing with, it's always rule of thumb used to be 15 years, but I think that accelerated quite significantly a couple decades ago. I think they've been, what if many of these characters that we're seeing, central casting and otherwise, are entirely fabricated? I mean, we got a guy named Elon Musk who's obsessed with going to Mars. The only other Elon I've ever heard of is the protagonist in Werner von Braun's novel about a guy who was obsessed with going to Mars, and his name was Elon. Is that guy even real? I mean,
Right.
Yeah, we got to ask ourselves these questions. And I don't want to get off into crazy land or anything, but I think that's become a very legitimate question at this point.
We all know that's not the real Elon.
No.
We call him Elon Musk. I mean,
Sure, but real Elon, is there a real Elon?
Yeah, who in fact was the real Elon?
The character in Werner von Braun's
Right,
book.
right. Other than that,
That's what I'm saying.
He was a creation in the same way. I get what you're saying. The kind of a creation, the same way Zuckerberg was a DARPA creation.
Yep.
That there's a whole deep rabbit hole to go down there, and I'm, who knows? That's a whole separate conversation. But the real Elon Musk, he was dealt with. I mean, he was mentioned specifically in the Q drops before they actually Q put out a warning that mentioned Zuckerberg. It was only the initials, right? So there's plausible deniability, right? But Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk and basically all of the big tech leadership at that time.
Palantir.
2018, right before Trump signed Executive Order 13818, basically warning them, your time's almost up. So they kill off the real one, but they keep the persona. They keep the persona alive because the persona. Look at what Elon Musk, regardless whether you think he's the real guy, whether you don't, he's been completely invaluable to the Q operation. Look how many people he's red pilled.
90% of people have no idea that may not be the Elon Musk at all. So it's a great tool.
Yeah, right. It doesn't even matter. We know the choice to know.
But it doesn't matter because what he's doing is waking people up.
Look at the Palantir story. It embodies the entire narrative here. Look at the ties to ambrosia, blood, adrenochrome. All of that. Project Looking Glass. I mean, if you look at how tight Palantir's algorithms were, and this was well before we saw the advancements in AI that we're seeing today, their predictive models were astonishingly accurate. So, and this is the guy that backed JD Vance, our current sitting vice president. Tight with Trump, tight with Musk. Well, maybe not so tight with Musk, but part of the PayPal mafia.
Okay.
And
oh God,
wow, you're really
we're
popular.
getting a little weary. It's been a long show.
Your tongue tastes great. Thank you, sir.
God. And I know where that thing's been.
Oh,
But yeah,
Oh.
not even getting.
you know how dogs greet each other.
But you know what I'm saying. Is that entire thing a parable? I mean, you read the Bible, a lot of that is parable. It doesn't mean it doesn't speak to a very real happening, but there's a duality to it, right? There is a parable I mean, I'm not going to pick apart the Bible right now. You can watch our shows
with Ethan
Lucas if you really want to get into that stuff. We go deep, but you're watching a movie. Let me tell you. I mean, these cast of characters, if you really look into it, there's a lot more to those stories than just what's on its face.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, you got to, we know that Elon is DARPA creation, and we know that the alleged President Biden was a diaper creation. So, these are the type of things that we deal with now, and we
Diaper.
move forward with it.
DARPA.
Yeah,
we-
diaper.
We've hit the 2-hour
Defense
mark. So
I was going to say we're at about at that time.
yeah, and I know that one of us has to get up to work tomorrow, and it ain't me, guys.
Ah,
Yeah.
me neither.
I'm still working in the matrix, unfortunately. Hopefully not for much longer, but we'll see.
So let's
No.
go and wrap this up. Joe and Scott, what do you got?
Well, this has been one hell of a pleasure. We should do it more often. I love the meeting of minds here, and what a combo we had. I'm really excited about Lewis's announcement tomorrow. What could he possibly have in store for us?
Oh, behave.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody tune in for that, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Pacific?
10
10
a.m.
Pacific.
Pacific.
1
Yeah.
p.m. Eastern.
And
Right.
I know we're airing it. I know Mark's airing it. I'm not sure who
It
else
will
is
be
airing
on
it.
Truth Stream. It will be on Patriot Underground. It will be on News Treason. It will be on Fake News 7 New York, and it will be, of course, on Screw Big
Screw
Gov.
Big Gov.
Did you send me the link for that already, Mark? For the stream?
Yes, I did. I do believe I did. If
All right.
not, I will send it to you again right after
Send
the
it to
show.
me again so I can set that up.
So
Super excited for that.
Don't we just send you? We set it up and then we send
Is it
you
a
our
Truth Stream link?
we send it to Lewis. You
We
set
send
it,
it.
you
We
set it
send
up,
our
is-
TMP to Lewis.
yes.
I think.
Is it? Wait. So all right. Well, we get off air. You can talk me through it.
Yeah, we'll get into this
Yeah,
specifics.
I'm just saying, in terms of closing remarks, just remember to love one another and remember everybody's an individual and see them that way. And even if they're assholes, I mean, try and see the God in everyone. It makes the world a better place. It's just that simple. So that's all I got.
What do I got? I just, I'm
You got
excited.
stung just by a dog. That's what you got.
I have Sublime in my head. Love is what I
Well,
got.
I gotta say, let us know in the comments because we are so excited to have went to Costa Rica, to be going to Ireland,
To be going back to Costa Rica.
We still have some spots left if people want to join us. We have a few interviews. One we've done with Mark Atwood, and then there's a short version. It's like 18 minutes. If people want to join us in September, there's a big Patriot. I think it's called Patriots Across the Pond on September 20th in Boyle, Ireland. Scott and I are going to be there. It's Scott's birthday. Then we're doing a 5-day retreat. All the information is on our channel. But the point of saying that is we want to do events in Florida. We want to do events in likely Vermont with Lisa Schermerhorn and Barry. And then in the Boston area with Patriot Underground.
Florida.
So, yeah.
Lots of Florida.
lots
with
of
all
Florida.
those Jews. We're going to be on the west coast of Florida primarily, but
So, and then we'll do another event in Washington, hopefully this summer. So we do want to meet people. I mean, part of our goal with Truth Stream is to do in-person events and meet people
There's
and,
a magic
and
to it.
see where it goes. Because it's really incredible when someone comes up to you that's really had a hard, whether it's few months, and they're like, "Thank you for having this event. You literally saved my life." Not that they were going to do anything, but I think that they were so destitute spiritually that they could put themselves around 50 people and network and meet people. That's our goal, is to do more events in person. And we were influenced to do so by the incredible, beautiful, amazing soul, Lewis Herbs, who's pretty much brought most of us together anyway. So
yeah. Boy, I wonder what he's going to say tomorrow. I don't know. I'm excited.
Patriot. What
Well,
say you?
yeah. I mean, I'll keep it brief. I think we had a great conversation tonight. I anticipated that we would. It was really great to get together with you guys. We're kind of used to spitballing ideas together, but it was also great for me to meet Lewis Herms. I'm very excited to hear what he has to say as well. You guys are doing an excellent job hyping it up. Well done. But yeah, it was a great wide-ranging discussion. I think we started in one area, and we were able to pretty much, to broaden the topic out into so many different interconnected topics as well. So I thought it was a fantastic conversation. And like I said earlier, moving forward, just enjoy the ride. I think that, we all have peaks and valleys along the way. I just did a kind of a coffee chat the other day where I was talking about, it's a grind, and a lot of us still feel like we're disconnected from the people that we love. We're still carrying that very heavy weight that we all experience by virtue of being awake. But the amount of progress that we've made, and it's just absolutely incredible. Awakened Outlaw, I did a show with him not too long ago, and he used the metaphor of like we're all kind of like kids in the back seat on a road trip, and we keep asking mom and dad, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Type of thing. And I said, yeah, that's true. And we had a good laugh over it. But I said, you can also look out the window, even though you don't know how far away you are from the destination. You can see how much ground you've covered. You can see how far away you are from where you began. And then, we've got Trump, like I said, dropping these absolute Moabs on us. I mean, this was, to me, that retruth was perhaps the biggest moment since I started my podcast. I mean,
100%.
I honestly put it right up there. I mean, and just when I think it just can't get more epic, it does. And sure, eventually, we're all going to see that. We're all going to witness the hammer drop. We're going to bear witness to the Great Awakening. That's what this is all about. So hang in there, everybody, but enjoy the ride, and be honest about how you feel. That's a big part of my mission as a podcaster. I've said right from the beginning, I'm not here to tell you I have all the answers, but I'm here to tell you, give you my honest opinion about where I think we're at. And not just where I think we're at, but what I'm feeling and experiencing along the way in the process. And so many people resonate with that because it makes them feel less alone.
100%.
And so it's important, I think, to be open and honest, and to have a good time. That was what was great about this conversation. We had a whole bunch of laughs, but we covered some serious topics as well. And a lot of wisdom was shared tonight. So Mark, thank you so much, my good friend. Joe and Scott, my good friends. I know we got I think we have a show coming up
on the 12th, June 12th.
Yeah, on the 12th, we're going to get together. I'm getting together with TrueStream, so we'll simul stream that. And if I'm not mistaken, Mark, you, Dave, and myself are going to be live next Saturday.
Okay.
Sounds like that's I got it on my calendar here. It's June 7th, News Treason, 8:00 Eastern.
Mark, and congratulations on finding out right now on the live.
Yeah, well, we should come up with a date real quick too, because we'd love to have you on soon.
Absolutely. If I don't forget about that, like I forgot about this one.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
I can show you visual evidence, Mark, if you need to see.
No, as soon as you said that, I went. I even remember acknowledging it first. I remember.
Love you guys.
But I want to thank all you guys for being here. I want to thank Lewis. I want to thank Joe and Scott, and of course, Patriot Underground. I mean, this has been a great discussion. I hope that all of you enjoyed the discussion. I hope all of you got a lot out of the discussion, and I hope that you'll all learn to treat each other better and to get along with one another, because we're all that each one of us has. So let's try to do what we can do. I want to thank Kat and Claudia and Kerry and Doug, because without them, I'd have to do all this stuff. So, but thank you guys, because you really are the difference between us being on and off the air. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, and remind everybody tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, the rest of you in the middle, figure out your own time zones. But Lewis has a very, very important announcement, and I suggest that you all watch on whatever platform you want to watch it on. We're all here. We'll all be carrying it, because we're all very, very interested to learn just what Lewis has to say. I think you're going to find it very, very interesting. So once again, everybody, thank you. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you all again next Sunday on Respect.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
God bless.
Bye-bye.